Does Aaron Rodgers own the formula?
Hello, everyone. Trust the Profits. Here we are coming at you in Week 7 in the NFL. This is our football rundown. Trust the Profits. I'm the formula. Got El Hombre over there and JM down there. Got to get my mirror going on. How you doing, guys?
Doing very well, thanks. Man, that intro is rocking. That
Love
intro is rocking like Dan Campbell style, baby.
Without the tears.
Without the
all
tears.
the kneecaps involved.
Dang it. What are we doing this week? What are we talking about? Aaron Rodgers? What are we doing?
So, for the record,
the Bears are we thought they were. He owns them. He said it. He's right. What else?
Yeah, so the Aaron Rodgers ownership tour continued through Chicago. He's owned them for his entire career. He threw for a Justin Fields inspired 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. All right. So, yeah, he may own the Bears, but let me just put it out there. I've been dissing him all year in fantasy because, the shine is off on Aaron Rodgers at 37. I mean, one of the greatest of all time. I'm not taking that away from him. But again, in fantasy football, I think that was worth maybe about 20 points, which is probably as good as your backup quarterback is right now. So once again, even though Aaron Rodgers still winning games, still outperforming the Chicago Bears, I still think he's a fantasy football sit. There, I said it.
hold on.
What do you think?
Anyone else have a take that they want to launch out there on the topic?
No, we've hammered on Rodgers too much. He's a good player. That's about it. He's not a fantasy starter anymore.
We all just want him to be bad, right? We want him to suck. We want Green Bay to lose. That's what we want.
But by the way, the ownership of the Bears is not really saying much. The Bears have sucked through most of his career, by the way. I mean, they had a few decent years in there. I think Favre had more of the tougher Bears years. The Hester years and all that,
There was a little bit of an overlap there. There was still some Urlacher / Briggs years. But for the most part, you're right. But you're right. Let's get off the topic of Aaron Rodgers. We've talked way too much about a guy who's a middling fantasy football quarterback. Let's start with some sits, some starts, or some waiver ads. JM, I'm going to throw it over you for the first one. Who you got?
What town was that in? Funeral director?
Oh, Waukesha? Is that what I said?
Represent. What's up, Wisconsin? We're out here. All right. Yeah. So this week, we got a lot of teams on a bye, which is really hard to kind of deal with sometimes, especially if you're already dealing with injuries. I'm going to be taking a look at Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick. They're playing at Cleveland tomorrow night. He's around 40% rostered at this point. He's topped 80 receiving yards or scored a touchdown in 5 of 6 games so far this year. And while he's not really a target machine every single week, he's recorded double-digit fantasy points in 5 out of 6 weeks. So, again, the Bills, Cowboys, Jags, Chargers, Vikings, Steelers, all in a bye this week. So I feel like I've been wanting to talk about Tim Patrick for a few weeks now. He catches everything that is thrown his way. I think he's a solid ad, a solid start. So this kind of coincides with waiver ads and starts for the most part. So I like it.
Extremely consistent player when it comes to fantasy points, right? If we look at the first 6 games, obviously it depends on how your league scores, but in my league, 5 out of those 6 games, he scored 8.9 to 10.2. That is his range in those 5 games. So, yeah, extremely consistent. If he doesn't get 90 yards, he gets 30 yards and a touchdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their number 2 wide receiver, Courtland Sutton. Sounds like a Southern gentleman of some sort. But, yeah, Tim Patrick, also candidate for the most boring name of any wide receiver in the NFL. Lined up opposite of Courtland Sutton, one of the most audacious names.
Courtland Sutton sounds like he should be partnered with Davis Love III in next week's PGA Tour event.
Could be as well. That's right.
Both of those guys are playing really well right now, by the way. So,
yeah, they are.
I only know it because of DFS. They've been strong options for the price point in DraftKings type games. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
hammered down on Sutton a couple times this year. He's done well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The next one I got here, um, like you said, JM, there are not many sits this week. And I was going through it, right? I mean, especially when you look at quarterback, you got Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, all those guys are sitting this week, and all those guys are like top fantasy quarterbacks. So how can you say sit someone who's mainly a starter when you got those guys who are already, you know, sipping martinis on the sideline this week? If there is one player that you might consider sitting because you've got someone else out there who's comparable, Lamar Jackson. I've said it before. I'm a broken record on this. Impossible to predict, but he's playing Cincinnati and he struggled last week, right? I mean, they put the win up, no doubt about it. Fantasy wise, though, his numbers struggled. I think Lamar Jackson at this point, right? He's been playing with a bad back. He's been playing lights out in a number of games, including games that I probably told you to sit him before. If you've got a debate this week, if it's close, I think Lamar Jackson probably desperately in need of some rest right now. It might not be the best start against Cincinnati's defense.
It's a hot take. It's a hot take.
I think he's one of the 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you have to start no matter who they're playing against. That's my,
all right.
That's I don't see how you can bench him. I mean, what are you going to do?
Depends who you have.
Jared
Like
Goff
I said, if it's a debate
for you.
No, if you've got someone like Joe Burrow.
What about Tua? You going to put Tua in there for him? Come on.
No.
Guy's going to throw.
Tua's got a decent matchup this week, actually.
Yeah. I would consider.
I cannot throw a football. I mean, he cannot throw a football. It looks like Tim Tebow flopping a freaking pancake across the thing. Nobody can, you can't. If you've got Lamar Jackson, you're starting him, guy. Come on.
Yeah.
Tua last week was decent. Come on. Let's come on and say this here. Tua last week, coming off of like 4 weeks of injuries, threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yeah, he did it against Jacksonville, but at the same time, he did it against an NFL team, right? Right?
Yeah.
Stretch, but Jacksonville barely an NFL team. I mean,
was that a Tim Tebow reference, real quick?
Yeah, he sucks.
Thoughts and prayers, man.
He looks like Tebow when he plays. He throws the ball. It looks like he's throwing it like a snow cone, just flopping like.
Except Tua's like 4'6" and we're probably not that good. Whereas Tebow's built like.
Yeah, at least he was an athlete, right?
Not that good. So, all right, let's move on here. Let's take a look at Cardinals running back James Conner. All right, he's got a matchup at home against the Houston Texans. Conner's been a consistent scoring threat in recent weeks, finding the end zone 5 times in his last 4 games. He led the Cardinals in carries last week, recording 16 for 71 yards. I think he's going to see a heavy workload Sunday against the Texans. They're giving up an average of 141 rushing yards per game this season, which is the second worst in the NFL right now. So it's a pretty good matchup. Now, Chase Edmonds is in the mix here too for the Cardinals running back, but Conner has actually put up better numbers lately. He's been really solid. So, he's not a guy that you can get on waiver, but I think he's a running back that you either have as your RB2 or he's on your bench. So if that's the scenario, I'd be playing him this week. He's got a great matchup.
Connor's got a great matchup. The only risk I see with him is if they get up by 20, which might happen in the first half, they might sit him just for healthy, to keep him healthy. But yeah, either one of those guys for the Cardinals are going to get a lot of snaps because I think it could be a blowout situation early where a lot of clocking, running the ball, keeping it on the ground, keeping it rolling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Probably by the early in the second half, if not.
Cardinals 6-0. Who saw that coming?
Baby Yoda ownership tour, dude. I mean, guy owns that. It's crazy. I mean, maybe the wheels will come off at some point like they did for Herbert. Everybody was, anointing him the next Christ last week. Went out and they had a major issue last week. They looked bad, got hammered. But I don't know, man. The Cardinals are, and I was definitely not a believer in Baby Yoda before the season.
Yeah.
You had sold me now. Like, I mean, that dude is killing it. Good for him. Good for the Cardinals. That's a horrible franchise that finally looks like they may have turned it around.
Yeah, and I think Justin Herbert is probably like one maturation level below where Kyler Murray's at right
That's
now.
true.
In my opinion, I
He's
think
got a
like
couple of years on him, right? I mean, a year at least.
I think he's got 1 year on him, but I think just in terms of what he's learned over those past couple years, it's like when I'm trying to think of another quarterback for comparison, but like when you get to like second, third year or
Mhm.
so, you start to see, okay, this is the quarterback that this person's going to be for, the upcoming future. This is the tier that they work themselves into, right? And I think Kyler Murray is sort of showing that right now. He's starting to say, okay, I'm like a top 5 quarterback or a top 10 quarterback, put me in that conversation. I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
Justin Herbert showing flashes of that, but it's like when we see a lot of sophomore quarterbacks who start to look really good one week and then you can see something in the defense phased them another week.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
It's
Yeah.
like Lamar Jackson. I mean, they were waiting for him to take the next step too, but I mean, he was kind of in the same boat a year or so ago, and I mean, he
Yeah.
still hasn't won the Super Bowl. Like everybody expects him that maybe this is their year with him too. But yeah, the 2 or 3 year window where the expectation goes from, okay, he's a great athlete, he's getting it done in the regular season, but can he get it done in the playoffs?
How
Right.
long can he really play the way he plays, being Mr. Everything, right?
Exactly, dude. It's
You can't ask that guy to do that
6
every
or
single
7 year
year.
window, maybe.
Yeah.
Plus,
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's at
anybody who's
best.
played during the Tom Brady era has about half the years to get it done because Brady's going to win the other half. It's been that crazy with that ratio, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Tampa hasn't looked great, so maybe somebody else can break through and have their year like Mahomes did a couple years ago.
And that's why I keep thinking it's going back to Murray. Mahomes is a guy I was trying to think of earlier too, when it's like, okay, you start to see the flashes of brilliance, but then they hit that inflection point where it's like, okay,
It only took him 2 years though.
2 years plus 1 on the bench.
Okay.
Well, and
Kyler Murray
sometimes
got
these
thrown in.
guys start out real hot, and then defenses around the league start to figure them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs and Mahomes right now, they don't look unbeatable, right? They look like a team that is good. You expect them to be there in the playoffs in the end, but they don't look like they can't be beat.
No.
Right.
So,
The
All right.
Cardinals look like they might not be beat though, but it'll fall off for them
Oh yeah, they're gonna have
at
their
some
week.
point.
They're gonna have their week or 2 weeks, but they look at least like I have to do my math again now. A 15-2 team. Does that sound fair? 15-2.
playing 17
Okay.
games this year.
Yeah,
I got to do new math now.
I can't.
not
Yeah,
forget-
I'll never get used to that.
Nah,
Yeah. It's kind
it's
of
always a
stupid.
16 game season.
Yeah, it should be 16 games, and we shouldn't have games on Thursday either. Stupid.
I agree. Thursday
Agreed.
sucks.
Agreed.
So
All right,
does
you
it-
guys ready
so does
for a
the
hot
London
pick up
crap,
here?
by the way? But go ahead.
I got another hot pickup here for you. Rostered in 11% of the leagues, wide receiver for your Cleveland Browns, Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's a lot to say. 101 yards last week with 2 touchdowns. It was pretty much his coming out party. Second-year man out of University of Michigan. The week before, he had 6 targets for 5 catches. We could be witnessing the rise of Peoples-Jones here, right?
Do they have a
He
quarterback
leads-
in Cleveland though? That's the only question I got. But
Oh,
Mayfield-
absolutely. I
Continue.
mean that's a concern.
Mayfield
But if
out.
anyone's throwing right now, they're throwing to David Njoku. But wide receiver wise, Peoples-Jones actually has the most receiving yards out of any wide receiver in Cleveland. That includes Odell Beckham Jr.
what's the
Yeah.
status with Mayfield though? I mean,
He's out. He's out tomorrow. Case Keenum's getting the start.
Yeah. Case
at least he's a
Keenum coming
veteran.
in.
At least
Yeah,
he's a
he's
veteran. I
capable.
mean,
Totally capable.
he's not the worst.
Not at all.
I'd rather have him than Jared Goff. We'll talk about that another day.
We should talk about that in a little bit here, because as human beings, we need to show empathy, right? And I feel bad for that guy.
Oh yeah.
Having said that, let's move on real quick so we can wrap it up. I'm going to be looking at Washington football team running back J.D. McKissick at Green Bay. This isn't a great matchup as the Packers have been pretty stout on defense lately, but starting running back Antonio Gibson is banged up and questionable as of now. The formula doesn't like Antonio Gibson that much either way. So if Gibson misses this one, I like McKissick to get a decent amount of touches, and he had a nice game last week, 110 total yards, and he's especially good pickup in PPR leagues. I gets most of his touches or catches out of the backfield, and he'll line up in some of the receiver spots as well. So, again, don't love the matchup, but with all these teams on a bye this week, McKissick gets a lot of touches, especially if Gibson's out. And they got Jarrett Patterson, a running back who I honestly have never heard of, getting the early down work there. So I like McKissick. He's solid. Not going to be consistent the whole year, but based on the matchup and the game script, I think he's a solid play.
Yeah, he's last couple days, I think his ownership has gone up 15%. I still rostered in 57% of the leagues in Yahoo, so there's a really good chance that he's available in your league. As you said, right? Gibson, even when he's not banged up, hasn't been all that great this year. So he could get a lot of usage in this upcoming game versus Green Bay.
Right. I expect him to be trailing, or it might be a good game back and forth. I'm not real sure. Green Bay defense has been pretty solid lately. So it's a toss up, but at the same time, looking at the numbers, I think he's worth a plug in for sure.
Right. All right.
I'm going to toss in one more. I'm going to say anybody for the Black Cats at Carolina could be dangerous going into New York. The Giants look like they're worse than the Lions. Maybe the worst team in all of football.
There is not a worse team in football than the Lions. I'm here
Bounce
to tell
back
you.
for the kissing quarterback who lost a heartbreaker.
Yeah, Darnold does not look good the last couple games. I almost put him on my start list this week because the matchup is good. And before the last couple weeks, Darnold has been pretty consistent. He wasn't throwing a lot of touchdowns, but he was getting a lot of opportunities, getting a lot of throwing attempts. So just sort of off the cuff here, I would say start Darnold just because of the matchup. I agree with you on that one there, El Hombre.
All right. What else are we doing?
One other thing I'm going to add in here, Khalil Herbert, owned in 65% of Yahoo leagues. That number's going up. He had 19 rushes for 97 yards and a TD last week. I mean, he's getting starting running back type carries, your old school type running back carries. Montgomery, from what I can see, is back-ish, but still a little bit banged up, still a little bit hurt. I have a feeling that whatever's going to happen this weekend with Justin Fields, the way they're utilizing him, the way they're running the ball first, Khalil Herbert is going to get some carries this weekend. Could be really good fantasy ad.
Really wish I would have picked him up last week. I really could have used him right now. I'm banged up at running back. McCaffrey's he's on IR. This is a great pickup, man. I was slacking on that one for sure. Really, I might even just go take my own trophies and put them in the basement, or just go into exile because I lost my fantasy matchup last week. I sat Damian Harris for Zach Moss. Ended up losing by 5 points. Damian Harris had about 18 points. Moss had about 4.5. I was so pissed off that I did that. But honestly, I was doing some reading and some research, and everyone said Damian Harris should be a sit last week against the Cowboys. And I was like, okay. So, sometimes you need to go with your gut and not even trust ESPN and Yahoo and those guys. So, trust the prophets is what you should be doing.
But trust the prophets.
Bada bing.
That's the message right there.
He didn't even touch. He touched the ball. It felt like 4 times. Zemo.
On Monday night,
right. I'm just sitting there going, oh, okay, this back and forth.
Derrick Henry show, by the way.
Buffalo was in the red zone, I don't know, 20 times. I mean, and he still didn't get it done. Still couldn't get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Any carries.
There's about 3 teams right now that I don't even want to touch a running back on because of that situation. Buffalo's one, Baltimore's another, and San Francisco. Those 3 teams, if I see running backs available and they're ramping up, and we talked about some at the beginning of the season, but right now I'm a little snake bit on those 3 teams in terms of running backs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
What else are we doing? Closing out?
We are closing out. That is a show right there.
Quick
Let's wrap this one up.
Getting this one done in under 20 minutes. Shout out to 9 playing those Leos in LA next week.
Oh man,
Oh boy, that's
this is not going to be. Everybody's going to be on the lookout now for what week will the Lions get their win. It's not going to be this week against 9. I think Vegas has it at like 15.5, which is a college football spread. It doesn't happen in the NFL.
Right.
Wow.
It's not the worst spread though. Houston at Arizona was minus 17.5 when it opened
That's
up
true.
earlier.
I would
Yeah.
like for Stafford to maybe duct tape his right arm behind his back and see if he can beat the Lions with his left arm. Probably still could.
Probably. Yeah, I'm thinking there's a good chance of that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Get ready.
Sounds legitimate.
Get ready for 0-17, Motown.
Enjoy it. Enjoy your
New
night.
records.
And we have a lot to thank. Matty P.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Matt Millen from back in the day. We still owe a lot of gratitude to that guy as well.
Patriot way, baby.
Cursed, doomed.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Even Jacksonville with T-Law got their win. It ain't happening this year. The Lions suck. They are who we thought they were. Anything else before we close out? I think it's a good place to stop, right where the Lions.
Done and dusted.
Bang. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Yeah.